For the unsuspecting members of society, allow me to begin by quoting Lord Atkins in the case of Parker versus Parker, that if the law does not subject itself to an ever-evolving society, then it shall be left behind, whereas society moves forward. And that is just to mean that the law is not cast in stone, and so is the 1995 Constitution, which is and has been subjected over time to multiple amendments. And each time we move towards an electoral cycle, we see political figures and voices emerging, both from the population, from the academia, and from the political dispensation with regards to plausible electoral reforms. As we head towards 2026, where we see President Museveni seeking re-election, amongst other new emerging figures, there are voices that are saying we need to discuss certain electoral reforms, among which is the restoration of presidential term limits, and that is coming from the Right Honourable Hon.Mpuuga, the reduction of the size of parliament, but also from the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister are views such as having the parliament elect the president, among other proposals right there. So your guess is as good as mine. What do you think about these proposals? And viewers, I'm joined by a panel of distinguished young people that is now my pleasure to introduce to you, and in just no particular order. From the Democratic Party, and that is the Uganda Young Democrats, is its Deputy President, Hellen Sayuni. Pleased to have you, always dubbed in the colors of green.
Oh yes, surely we have to represent this party that we chose. Yeah, so thank you so much, Honorable Kidega, for hosting us. I am glad to be here. To the viewers, can't wait to share with you on what are the prospects of the electoral and the constitutional reforms as we head to 2026.
Wow, we are pleased to have you. An advocate of the High Court with audience in the Supreme Court and other subordinate courts is Julius, the other name, Bwesigye. Is it Bwesigye? I keep on forgetting that. But yes, Julius Bwesigye, Counsel, and we are pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kidega. And my name is Julius Arineitwe Bwesigye. Just like he has mentioned, I'm a member of Uganda Law Society, an advocate of the High Court of Uganda. And thanks to the management and those of you that make it possible for this program to run. To the audience out there, we look forward to an amazing discussion. Thank you.
We'll be back from the US election.
Yes. That was it was just a protest not delivered.
Sure.
On a blank check.
Sure. Interesting. Next to myself and last panelist on the show is a gentleman who is now homeless, as his leader told them to go back where they came from, and that is Ivan Agaba. Ivan is an economist by training, of course, and accounting therein, but also a member of the Patriotic League of Uganda Youth Forum. Yes. Ivan, we are pleased to have you.
Yes, thank you very much, Moses. It's a pleasure to be back to the Youth Roundtable, and it's also more even a pleasure to share my very honest, but very candid opinions, and also learn from colleagues on the table.
So, is it that you're homeless now, since you leader told you to go back where you came from?
Our patron chose to abdicate the responsibility we bestowed upon him, and so we are looking for another patron. But PLU stays as is. Yes.
Interesting.
Civil organization.
Yes, civic organization.
Interesting. Julius, let me begin with you, and just political electoral reforms, really. What do they mean to you, and the proposals being made?
Thank you very much. The starting point is that the ordinary citizens, ranging from those that operate borders to the market vendors, should have the right to determine how they are governed. And that is the notion of democracy. And for this democracy to flourish or to bear sense, those that determine how they should be governed should have rules that govern this process to ensure that it is free, fair, and transparent. And it's a combination of these that renders what we should call a credible electoral process. At the center of this process, there should then be reforms owing to the lessons drawn from the previous experiences. That if this process has demonstrated that the state media is skewed towards a particular candidate, the subsequent reforms should make it a point to ensure that now the other candidates benefit from the privilege that are being, the privileges that are being rendered to a single candidate. And what should then be in place and what is on the table, that's an evaluation of what's being proposed. Most of the proposals that are being made are sound and very good. I have gone through the proposals. In fact, we have 2 limbs that should guide this course. We have the first limb offered, in fact 3, if I would like to dissect it in a candid manner. The first phase was initiated by the Supreme Court in the case of Amama Mbabazi versus Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And this is where the Supreme Court, in delivering its decision, made particular observations that should have acted as a starting point for the electoral reforms that we should have in a country. The Supreme Court observed that the state-owned media should, for example, accord all the candidates equal time and opportunity as far as marketing their candidates is concerned. And in fact, it proposed that a law be made to provide for sanctions in the event that some state media choose not to comply. It made quite a number of proposals, many of them, and surprisingly, the state did not take this decision very serious.
I think, just to be fair, and maybe, of course, be the devil's advocate, is that that same decision recommended that the person who holds the office of chairperson of the commission must be at the level of a judge, and I think that was implemented through the Justice Byabakama. So but yes, also the nomenclature of the commission was changed and to include the word independent. So unless you're saying these are not substantive enough.
Because you see, in advocating for the electoral commission to be headed by the figure of a judge, there was the idea of an impartial judge, whose track record is not stained so much. But also you understand that we have the conflict between a cadre judge and a bona fide judge that has the substance and is able to stand for notions like impartiality and independence and decisions that they have rendered before and the manner in which they conduct themselves. All these remain subjective notions that we must weigh in as we evaluate the current candidate that we have in that position. And 2, in requiring this to be an independent institution, it was a question of form vis-a-vis substance. So now when you say that to ring-fence the Electoral Commission and render it to be an independent entity, and you can achieve that by simply changing the name and calling it the Independent Electoral Commission, you know, without ensuring that the candidates that you appoint to occupy these positions therein possess those traits of impartiality and independence. And how do you ensure these traits? You ensure these through the manner in which they are appointed.
So how would you propose that that process is maybe changed or reformed?
To reform this process, you must pull out the parties that are interested and the parties that abuse the same. So we have the executive, that is the sole beneficiary of their inadequacy and incompetencies. And you can't make the same executive appoint these people and expect different results.
But that appointment is subject to approval by Parliament.
It's subject
So
to
isn't
approval
there
by
checks and
Parliament,
balance?
but
Isn't
you
that-
understand how inept our parliamentary system has been. Over 529 candidates in that parliament, and my brother,
Yeah.
you don't expect the element of objectivity. These are the people who have no time to even debate on issues of governance. So the veto powers, as provided in the Constitution, has literally been defeated by the structure. They call it substantial concerns with respect to the parliament system that we have in the country. You can't expect it to veto the decision of the executive.
So is it your assertion that any institution where the executive appoints the leadership or the membership is defunct?
It is not
Is
per
that
se.
your- is that
It
the
is not
general-
per se. What I'm stating is that some institutions are too important to be subjected to the whims of an individual, and especially if that individual is directly benefiting. That's a conflict of interest. And there is no way how a party that has been appointed by the other party, and well understanding that this party that is appointing has the power to disappoint, there is no way how you will ensure credibility,
Security of tenure.
impartiality, and independence. So there must be security of tenure for these commissioners. There must be review of the process in which they are appointed. But leaving that and looking at the greater picture is the second limb of the proposals that are made by the Minister of Justice, Mr. Norbert Mao. So he advocates for the manner in which the president should be elected. That's the most catching thing. The rest of the proposals are nice. But what happened to our impartiality in rendering national service? How can a minister come out to usurp the authority of the citizens? That the parliament be the one to appoint a president. But you have parliamentarians sponsored by a party, you have parliamentarians manipulated with ease at a check, signed.
But aren't also, can that same argument apply for the general population? The people down there are also manipulated with soap, sugar, water. So what difference will it make?
Be it as it may, I admit that they are manipulated. And in fact, these are the gaps that we have. So then you can't treat a mischief by creating another mischief.
Okay.
If you are a leader and you're providing a remedy, I think the starting point should be for you to in fact provide working remedies. You don't simply say that because this has not worked for a long time, then I'm going to amend it by killing it. This is in a nutshell what they are saying.
Okay, fair enough. Helen, let me come to you. Your general views about the proposed amendments, or reforms for that matter. And coming from your party leader is interesting to note.
Well, some are actually very interesting. Some are rumors. Others, people have come out. We've known that Hon.Mpuuga has proposed some. And we've had like the Citizens Compact on the electoral reforms, which we hope that is going to take, of course. I am of honest thoughts that most of the electoral reforms and amendments are going to come from the Citizens Compact on electoral reforms and the Supreme Court ruling of Hon.Mpuuga versus the one of 2016. I am hoping that that's where they're going to come from. But majorly looking at how best can we level the ground for all the candidates come 2026. And of course, majorly people are looking at the Electoral Commission, how to make it more independent, that it favors all the candidates, and how to look at, and also looking at how we can have a very independent one, not impartial. And I am hoping that that will come to pass. About the parliamentary system, I am only hearing it from him, I think it is still rumors until my president tables it. But that is...
But what would be your opinion about it?
From our party, we are for proportional representation, and that's what we've been advocating for long, not what actually the public is talking about.
Could you break it down for the ordinary listener? The
proportional representation looks at majorly like political parties. We do not actually vote individuals. They vote for political parties, and then the percentage comes in with proportionality of how a party has performed. And even the parliamentary system that people are actually...
Like it is in South Africa?
Yeah, sure. Like it is in South Africa, like it is in, I think, it has skipped my mind. But that's what generally we are looking at. But even the parliamentary system that we are all against itself is, depending on how the ground shall be, may not be really so bad. Because what have we even gotten out of all this, presidential? What has it? Because at the end of it all, we may of course not like it, but
so
what represents in Parliament?
You have a soft spot. You're sympathetic to that reform, that you can consider it.
It depends on the angle that you're looking at it from. Because some people are looking at it at Museveni level.
So you are open to it?
If you're looking at it at Transi Museveni after, it may work out.
Okay.
Unfortunately, most of us are looking at it at with the angle that we are favoring Museveni. You know, the rumors that are talking, he's too old to campaign now nationally and all that. But if you're looking at it Trans Museveni way, but also it not coming from above, but coming from down, because I believe this will actually take us to people having to decide for themselves. I do not think that it's just going to come and then Parliament approves and then we go for it. We're also looking at the timing. Right now we have over like 4 months to the election, because the election roadmap, I think, starts in March. I do not think that amendment is going to go through, because we have really less time to go and make people vote over it or have to decide for themselves.
Is it an entrenched provision?
It must be.
Does it require a referendum, Council?
Council should
the
guide us on that.
Only makes the restoration of term limits entrenched. Now this has been...
No. I mean the current legal framework. Does it provide for... Okay, has it entrenched the provision to amend the mode of voting for the president? I don't think it is an entrenched provision.
It's not.
It's not entrenched. So it means Parliament can amend it without having a referendum.
Yeah, so for us, we're looking at that, but also
meaning the time factor might not count.
It may count really. It may count really, because sometimes electoral reforms that come really towards elections, maybe in most cases towards helping the sitting government, not contrary to the other. Because most of us may not have time to run around explaining to people, but for them, they're already in the system and they know how to do it. So for me, when I look at the timing, if that is to be brought, then it does not favor someone who is not, in the driving seat. But also, I am looking at electronic voting, that I'm very sure my president has tabled it in cabinet, and I think it did not receive. It didn't receive enough positivity, but I'm sure it's going back. But if at all it passes, it is one that we would all appreciate, because there is a way it favors those. It favors the fact that we may have a bit of fairness. It is very hard. It is not easy to manipulate compared to the system that we have right now, where you just go and tick, and even in your absence, someone can tick for you. So I am really looking at that. But otherwise, I am hoping my president will table reforms that favor all of us, but also favor the common Ugandan in understanding what goes around in the country. When you look around, of course, Parliament is a representation of the people out there. So I wonder those that are even protesting the parliamentary system, what they are talking about. I think for us, we should be looking at having a system generally that represents us. And if we think that the parliament cannot vote for the president, then it becomes really hard for even us who vote the president. Because, you know, you put your MP there to represent you.
So then you
Then
bestow
again,
upon
it's
them
also, this is
the
also
power and the trust to
almost
represent you,
yeah,
and
you know,
choose who the
and
president
it has a
can.
lot of powers. It determines all these things. The budget, it comes up against on the law issues. So I feel
if they can do all that, then
if they can do all that,
why can't the elect
yeah,
the president?
for me, I think if we are to protest the parliamentary system, if it is there anyway, we should protest it with something more tangible than just thinking that we should remain with the presidential system. And for me, that's why I'm telling you, proportional representation could actually be a better reform for us if it is to protest the parliamentary system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Ivan, let's hear your perspective. There are rumors that that the Norbert Mao proposed reforms are meant to benefit a given group of people. But also important for us to observe is that the reforms being discussed seem to be only at the top. And yet, in 2021, we had over 3 million elected leaders. But our focus is only on around 501, somewhere around there. So it looks like the reforms are not going down to the LC1 to... So do you think they are sufficient? Is it a top-bottom approach, and is that sufficient enough, but also your general views about the proposals?
Well, I think I will attack it from the angle general views first, and then I can share the top-bottom, bottom-up sort of approach. And I think I'll begin from where my sister stopped. That the entire idea of this enfranchising Ugandans by doing away with the votes through universal adult suffrage and leaving it within the ambits of parliament to vote a president, I think is the stillbirth, and it will not go anywhere. The persona I see in the head of state, I don't see in him somebody that can let his fate be decided by a smaller group of people, and that's to say parliamentarians. I don't see him doing that.
But the parliamentarians vis-a-vis the population, which group has proven to be a headache to him? I think it's the population.
It's the parliamentarians, and it's why...
Parliamentarians, I think he has full grip over that house.
But again, it depends on how you see it, because I think it was Mwenda that was saying that with Among as Speaker of Parliament, it has become increasingly easier for the President to handle Parliament. To handle Parliament to skew their thinking and their voting patterns. But I don't see Museveni restricting himself to a small group of people like parliamentarians who would want to fling the ring open and have that election man to man with the entire population. Because one of the 10-point program sort of points was the restoration of democracy, and universal adult suffrage was very key to that. I don't see him doing away with universal adult suffrage. Two, I think amongst the reforms has been for the prisoners and people in diaspora to also vote. I think that has also been around for some good time, and I don't know why. Because ideally you would think that prison is one of the organs of state violence, and that the head of state has absolute power over it. But I'm told, I don't know, I may be wrong, but I'm told that there was once a time when policemen were asked to, when they were voting, and in one of the barracks, Museveni lost. So I don't think he is willing to take that risk. All in all, I don't see a government that was instituted by guerrilla war fighters legislating itself out of power. I think this is all part of the whole grand scheme of keeping Ugandans busy and keeping them guessing about what the future might be. Museveni, I know he's a guy that believes in, I don't know, crossing the bridge when you reach it. I don't see any of these proposed electoral reforms coming to fruition.
Okay, but in terms of principle, with regards to sovereignty of the people, and that's Article 1 of the Constitution, is that in which of the two options do the people get to exercise their will to determine how they are governed? Is it through a presidential system where the people get to vote directly, or through the parliamentary system where the MPs vote for the president? In which case, in your view, do you think gives the utmost representation of the views of the people?
To me, I think it would be back to the people themselves. Give it to the people themselves and let them decide who gets to become president. Because, I mean, we've been around for the previous cycle of elections, and we've noticed and noted that you will find an area where the MP is an opposition candidate and they are voted, but the same group of people vote for the president. So it's not, except for a block vote like the case was in the previous election, especially for the central region, but in most of the other areas of the country, you find for MP, the people might vote the person dear to them, the person that attends their burials and contributes towards their kwanjulas, but for the president, they will still vote Museveni. So I don't see him losing that for anything else.
All right. Just last, before I go to Julius, is that the proposal to create an upper house in the parliament. Do you think we are ready for that as a country?
I don't think we are. Actually, I think the proposal by Mpuuga to scale down the number to, was it 292 MPs? I think serves us better. We need to scale down the number of people in that parliament. So the entire...
Do you see the MPs in that house agreeing that some of them should be jobless, that more than half of them should be jobless? Do you think they should? I don't think they will agree to that. But, well, be it as it may, I think the point therein is that there is, the parliament as it stands is a huge burden on the taxpayer.
Very true.
And there is need for us to streamline. But you see, there's contradiction, because at the same time you have the EC proposing new constituencies. And so that is where the actual controversy is, that you have the EC proposing new areas, but at the same time you have Parliament and some MPs saying that we need to cut down the size of Parliament. So it's a real contradiction for me.
Again, for me, I think it's part of the grand scheme of keeping Ugandans busy and thinking. But lastly, Moses, on this is that, you see, I have a very contrarian view when it comes to democracy. I believe that, see, democracy is a product of development and not a cause of it. I still believe that countries like these with per capita GDPs like that of Uganda are still so young to handle democracy and, I don't know, fully benefit and harness the benefits that come with it. It will be so hard to tell someone to heed to democratic sort of credentials and ideals when they do not have supper.
Food on their table.
You get it? So I believe you can't exercise democracy on an empty stomach. I still feel that Museveni is trying to cosplay to Ugandans and to the international audience that, well, we have something called a democracy in Uganda. In actual sense, I don't think we do.
All right, fair enough. Let me bring in Julius and we do one more round before we take a break. Julius, with regards to presidential term limits, it's almost an obvious answer I expect from you, but for the benefit of the viewer out there, of what importance is having presidential term limits, but also entrenching them in these new political reforms?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moses Kidega, and those of you listening and viewing this particular program. You see, the presidential term limits are very crucial. They check autocracy. They check the exercise of authority. Kenya could still be having Daniel Arap Moi, may his soul rest in peace. In which form would Kenya be having a Daniel Arap Moi? Perhaps his son could have taken over from Daniel Arap Moi and his grandson and his grandchild. To have a president who is able to remain in power. You see, Daniel, the current president is older than me in office. The entire life that I have been here on earth. President Museveni is older than me, just doing one job. Now, there is danger that arises from a single party reigning over a state for a long period of time. Part of it resides in economic exploitation of the ordinary people. When you talk about economic exploitation, these are notions that people may hardly understand. But if you can't understand what it means to be at the helm of power, making every single appointment, awarding every other opportunity, but also having the entire population guessing and even trying to dream about what you would like to have. To have people like Norbert Mao start dreaming like what would the president be wanting, especially that he's aging 80 years, he might find it quite disturbing to walk across the whole country. Let me initiate the parliament to vote. Because see why I depart from my honorable sister is that she seems to make a narrative that it's in the best interest of the people of Uganda that parliament elects the president. That narrative is untrue completely. A law comes in to cure. You're a lawyer yourself. You understand the essence of legislation. Legislation, to you, the ordinary people that are following up on the extraordinary people, you don't even need to be categorized, comes in to treat a problem that the community faces. So which problem is arising out of the 47 million Ugandans voting the president? There is nothing wrong with that. The only cure that they seek to treat is a president who is very old. And certainly having lost the charisma to run around the whole country. My brother seems to differ from that position. But I rebut and say that that's the only issue that they seek to treat with this amendment. But also the anticipation
But you know,
that there would be favored candidate.
We have been seeing him attending all these Thanksgiving ceremonies. So what makes you believe that he cannot conduct a campaign?
Trust me, we have missed key important international events where you think as a country we ought to be represented by the president, including the UN assemblies. And you have seen a number of representatives going to represent the president. The question is whether delegation of authority is allowed or not, but substantial representation is required. But you have seen the president fail for quite a number of occasions to represent Uganda, UN, and several occasions in China,
but
you might think he's a Pan-African.
The campaigns that you're talking about are run domestically.
Yes,
so
we
are evaluating his ability to run a national campaign.
I'm only
not flying. He's flying to China or to Europe.
I'm only awakening your deductive reasoning to mention that if he's failing to go to UK, if he's failing to go to represent Uganda at the UN General Assembly, he might equally find it bewildering to travel to Adjumani. to trek the load.
But that's why I'm telling you that we have been seeing him
A
domestically
once in a while.
moving
A once
everywhere,
in a while.
Thanksgiving
He was
or
in the
Thanksgiving
BFE
or where.
It's a once in a while event, but also an event that is devoid of pressure.
And I think
An event that is-
maybe to budge in a bit, that the going or not going for an international conference sometimes has geopolitical connotations to it. Sometimes you want to side with Russia and
Because he was in China
And
for the China Africa
Africa.
conference.
No, it was just Kalupo who went.
Sure.
Yes, please, check records.
Okay.
It was just Kalupo. Recently, it was Robin Anebanja, the Honorable, the Right Honorable. The law requires that we address her as such. She's the one whom I saw struggling with defending Uganda's human rights record. And apart from his assertion, it's not about geography, it's about the charisma and the ability to travel and trek that long distance and come back home. The President Museveni, who is only moving to commission a dam, is not required to stand and speak in a manner that convinces the people. Convincing the people requires the mind that is sharp and strong enough to reason. At 8 years, you have seen Joe Biden almost fall off the podium. They are trying to defend him from that embarrassment. It's not only that, but they are thinking the next candidate to them.
Okay, juxtapose Joe Biden with Donald Trump. They're almost in the same age bracket, but one is
still strong.
very strong.
I mean,
And
75 years cannot be compared to 81 years. A lot of changes in a time span
Trump
of
is
5
78.
years. Trump is 78.
Yes.
Yes.
And can you doubt his, I mean, physically speaking,
But
can you doubt
are
his
you
ability?
also saying Trump is able to reason smartly? You had the most recent debate with him asserting that people are eating dogs, pigs, cats, rats. That's what happens when people are old and they are not interested in living stage in an honorable manner. So the point I'm pointing out is that to have the presidential term limits creates that ring field that thwarts the sitting president, however powerful he is, and peacefully helps him to sit aside and ushers in a new set of young leaders like this honorable lady. Do you see how honorable she looks? Imagine if our system offered her the opportunity to be there with her eloquence. Do you see that young man with her ability to reason, to stand out and debate national policies on merit, not on the basis of where they come from. And then we have a new breed of young leaders take the leadership mantle. That's, in a nutshell, what the presidential term limits would
Guarantees.
mean. But the further guarantees of the presidential term limit are that those who have amassed a lot of wealth shall not use this wealth to entrench themselves in authority no matter what. And this is what we have right now. That the single family that has been in power before I was born, I now hold 3 degrees. I'm pursuing other studies. I have 3 children. He's been only working, coming back, using my tax, has never bought fuel, has never bought sugar, has never spent on his clothing. He has almost forgotten what life is all about. But that's not the whole thing. The whole thing is that his family has enriched itself using unfair distribution of opportunities to them. And in the end, even when he leaves power, they will be able to come and use the illicit acquired wealth to influence the direction of this country for many years. That's the danger that we would have avoided if we had presidential term limits. That you be there for a short time, only 10 years. You steal something small for 10 years. You eat it in the next 5 years, and you equated to other people. To other people. So it ushers in the notion of equality before the law. It ushers in the notion of fairness. It ushers in the notion of meritocracy, that young people like you, Daniel Kidega, shall not only stop at acquiring knowledge, but you will see opportunities being created. And if the term limits are not only restricted to the president, then they are also going down to the members of parliament, that you're not going to have a member of parliament doing one job for the next 20 years. He's there for 10 years. he goes away and you, Daniel Kidega, you are there for 10 years. It creates new opportunities and makes governance a circular system with people exiting and others coming in. And those that exit go with both bad and good ideas, and those that come in have opportunities for drawing indelible lessons that they shall apply to create a difference.
Wow, interesting. We are due for a short commercial break. Hellen, I'll begin with you right after this. And to the viewers, don't move a muscle because as you can see, there is so much that is being dispensed in the studio room. See you after this.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Hellen, let me just begin with you right away. The idea of limiting even, okay, your minister or your party leader suggested the woman MPs only. I would love to hear your thought on that. Having women MPs serve a maximum of 2 terms and then they exit. What does that do in terms of affirmative action?
Well, I will first clear the fact that he has lied a bit, that I am saying the parliamentary system is in the favor of the common people. It is not really true, but also we must evaluate for the longer that we have had the universal adult suffrage. What has it changed the power? Has it brought in a new president, or instead it's being manipulated? And what can we bring in to solve that? For me, I want us to move from the debate of it is favoring President Museveni and all that and his family and all that.
So,
I want us to focus.
How is it favoring the?
I want us to focus on if the universal adult suffrage has not worked. Of course, we do not expect parliamentary system to work. I am not even supporting it at all. What can we now go for? It should be the debate. I'm looking at it beyond just having Museveni in power, because I do not believe he's going to stay in power really for the rest of our lives.
So you're saying that Julius has limited his analysis
yes,
to the individual?
Yes, exactly. I want us to look at a life without him, because definitely at 80 years, we do not expect him to live for more than 20.
His shadow is going to rule for the next
Not
50
at all.
years.
I do not expect myself, Hellen, to live in a government that is being led by a shadow of Museveni at all, really. We are not short of leaders as a country. We are in a system that is just manipulated. And if the democracy of universal adult suffrage has not worked, what do we have on table that can help us solve this problem? And to the question of term limits on women members of parliament, why do people think that they should regulate women and not regulate the others? I think the term limits should really come as a whole, from president to MPs, even to LCs. We have had LC ones that have served over for how long? I don't know. I don't remember voting actually an LC one, me. Because of course I started voting this Chisanja, but then my LC one has been one ever since I was born. I've had one LC one, it's the only one that I've seen. So it shouldn't be about women members of parliament only. Even the other members of parliament should serve and go. We have had MPs that have been in parliament, I don't know since when. There is one a lady that has been there even before they brought the affirmative action. So the term limits should also work with the president, should work with LC5s, should work with everybody in this country, so that there is new hope.
Maybe the idea was to empower more women.
It is not about empowering more women.
Women, have access to decision-making
we should not look at empowering women only to be political. And that's where we go wrong. Empowering women goes all around, all the other avenues, not only being an MP in parliament. There are other avenues where women can serve. I have seen the new cabinet of Uganda Law Society. I think it has one woman, they elected.
Is there any, Julius?
There's one that I saw that has one lady. I don't know whether that flyer was actually the correct one, but I think it was put up by the Uganda Law Society Twitter handle. So I believe that we should also regulate the male, the direct seat MPs. There are those that have been there really longer than we don't even know. But if we only regulate it to women, then that will be a very, very segregative law. I do not even expect it, my leader to really bring it. It should be wholesome, that it brings hope to all of us, that I can actually go for. In fact, right now it becomes very hard. People, you look at women that have gone for direct seats, it's difficult. But if we put term limits on all of them, it will become easier, that you can actually even easily go for the other seat and explain yourself and win, other than just looking at regulating women, because it will only look like we are only, the whole country is only focused on women members of parliament, and we are going to breed a debate that we shall not like in the days to come, because that is really trampling on our rights. We need a new hope to the young emerging leaders, that actually someone can serve and go. There is a constituency in Jinja that I don't want to talk about, where one MP serves this term, goes away, the other one comes. There have been 2 candidates in that constituency. The other one, when they fail this Chisanja, the other one may win the other one, or may lose by court, then the other one takes over. It's been like that, and there are 2 male only. So if we are really talking about giving new hope to other people, then it should be open, that even ladies can go and contest on any seat, and after some time we just leave and go.
Yeah, and interesting, on the point of hope, we are not we are not having a discussion around the aspect of the youth. And I don't know, do you think that these reforms cater for the unique needs of youthful participation in the electoral politics? And if so, where are these reforms insufficient? Take for instance the aspect of the fees that you have to pay to get whatever nominated to run either as president or whatever it is. So what would be the reforms that would benefit the youth directly?
Well, I have not had any discussion in terms of the electoral reforms that really favor youth at the level of the lawmakers up there, but youth have been advocating for this. The Multi-Party Youth Forum, the Inter-Party Youth Forum, and youth in different areas have been advocating for the reduction of the nomination fees to favor the youth. And also I have seen them advocating for an increased number of MPs to represent them. For example, I also do not believe that one national female MP is enough for all the female in this country. I believe that we could also have like 3 or 4.
Isn't that argument?
That's what I think.
Isn't it very dangerous?
Because if at all they are creating...
Is it quality or quantity?
I do not know.
Assumption that more is
Let me tell you, at a level where we are at...
If you look at the 6th parliament, it was a very small group of people, but
if
you watch the hindsight...
the level where we are at, where they are even going to create more constituencies, and those constituencies may not even produce any young person.
So do 2 wrongs make a right? Because
they do not make,
what they're proposing to do is wrong in
they
itself.
They do not make, but so trust me, we need to balance we need to balance the boat, for the sake of balancing it at some level.
Even if it comes at the expense of the country.
We just need to balance the boat
even
where
if
it is
comes
needed.
At the expense of the country.
When did it not come at the expense of the country?
Because at this point, we are saying that the taxpayer is already burdened.
It shouldn't always be that when the younger people are asking for more, then we are putting a burden on the government, and when the others are asking, it is not.
No.
We have a parliament.
That is not my point. My point is that, is it about quality or quantity?
When we are talking about quality, it should be quality all through. If we are talking about quantity, let it be all through. We cannot just increase constituencies, and we know very well that constituencies at the moment do not even favor the younger person to go through. When you look at how the manipulation that takes place and the monetization which the young people do not have, when you look at all that, then I do not think that we should even be debating on whether the younger people should increase or not. As long as they have chosen to increase on the number of legislation.
Should the workers also say that because there is a growing middle class in
it
Uganda,
should be all round.
Workers MPs also now need
If
to increase.
electoral commission wakes up tomorrow and says that we are increasing
Actually,
on
Yeah, for the workers.
let me tell you.
Because won't you have a parliament of 600
If
and
it's
Let me tell you.
hired stick we are using,
Of
then
800.
the
We
workers
shall
don't
even
use
have
it.
1,000. That's for a fact.
Yes.
But trust me, Kidega, if we are saying that we shall just sit and watch on, and when the government says they are increasing, for us we are being suppressed. Because I do not really think that there is going to be a young person coming from those constituencies that are going to create.
But
if they are to come.
But I have to ask a question. With the
Please.
demographic dividend that young people have, you know, you both tell us that we are what? We are 75%?
Yes, we are. And
So-
the 60 and above is 5% actually.
Yes,
But
so-
they've ruled us for all
what
this
stops
long.
us from defeating them at the
The
constituency level?
climate does not favor us very well. The
Monetization,
political climate does not favor us so well. So we must find means of fixing ourselves there, trust me.
Okay.
Yes.
Ivan, rather, what's your view about increasing the number of... Because my question was with regards to what reforms can benefit the youth, and she says that we need to have more youth MPs in parliament.
Well,
What's your opinion?
she's a youth leader in Uganda Young Democrats.
Yes.
I don't think she was beseeched and begged to come and get a position. She actually had to muscle her way through and get to it. So, if her idea is for the youth to keep banging tables, for them to be given space at the banquet and where decisions are made, I think she's right. Because I want to look at the democratic dispensation we are in as is, not what it ought to be, because it may never be.
So
we need to be real.
So you're also for increased size of parliament?
If you increase the other
Like
side,
she has said, if you
Increase the side too.
increase through
it should be general.
through and through.
Yes.
If it is a quality issue, let it be a quality issue through and through. But the business of cherry picking some and leaving out others.
Okay, how many youthful MPs are in parliament?
You see-
Not youth, but youthful MPs.
Moses, the challenge I have with inclusion sort of crusaders is they tend to think that, say, the youth or the women face challenges that the other people do not face. You get it? And I think we had this at a fireplace conversation with the deputy speaker. And I remember in one of his responses, him saying that, you see, yes, it's good for you, the youth, to share your concerns, but your concerns are not any different from other people that are not useful. They're not any different from people with different abilities, per se, or women. So, again, to me, I don't think that even if nomination fees for the youth were lowered to 0 shillings, the electorate themselves will not ask these people to give them money. So if you're to change it, you change it bottom up from the mind of the person going to cast a vote. Because they do not believe in processes. You know, we need to debunk the entire thinking that people are so much interested in what the processes are. Because I mean, even the reforms that we are talking about of the minister, the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, and Hon.Mpuuga, Honorable, are all just meant to refine the process better. See, people are obsessed with the outcomes, not the process.
Because
And it's why they when they meet you, they will
Okay.
ask you for 10,000 shillings, because that's the outcome.
Ivan, let me
Yes.
ask a question. Which approach is more sustainable? Saying that we are going to increase the number of parliamentarians to accommodate more young people in terms of the affirmative action seats, or we are going to make the process more inclusive that enables participation of more young people?
Let me say this. that-
Which of the two options do you think is more sustainable?
Of course, if
Because-
I were to think rationally, I would take your view of things. But it's so wrong to assume human beings are rational. Human beings have biases, they have emotions, they have self-interests. So it would be so, I don't know, delusion of you to think that...
Okay, let us speak from the perspective of what is good for the country. Irrespective of our... Because I think leaders should be able to rise up above biases, rise up above sentiments and say, there's a country before us, and what will take our country forward.
Comrade Kidega, there's a difference between how things should be and how they are. Right now, we must deal with how things are. We shall deal with how they should be.
Where is the aspiration of how things should be? Who will then create
the moment we deal with how things are?
If we are all comfortable and allowing how things are,
let me tell you, the moment we accept with how things are and deal with how they are, we shall then look at how they should be.
But you're dealing with how things are by entrenching.
We have lived in the hopes of things should be.
And you're tired of that hope.
And ought to be.
And ought to be.
And you're tired of that
and things have not done themselves that
way.
So right now, if you dealt with how things are, and we sat on the round table and said things are like this, and we came to acceptance, they will be.
Julius, Just Julius, let me hear your thought on this particular matter.
Well, the starting point for me is that there seems to be an organic problem in our country. A problem that we can't even appreciate. And this organic problem has eaten the lubric of our national system from different angles. You know, it disappoints strongly, especially when you hear the debate of elites. People that have gone to school.
What are you trying to say?
I mean, this is a specialist. This is an economist. You did introduce him also. And he understands the functioning of the political economy from onset. He understands the essence of substance over form. He understands the ideal vis-a-vis the perceived and the reality. And his entry point is that we shouldn't imagine, we should let it be as it is. So we have 529 MPs. So we have many youths, we create another 500 youth MPs. They walk into Parliament, already a single MP has 3 minutes to address Parliament. So if they add one more, 1,000 MPs, they simply meet to say where in Parliament. Simply because it is a question of form. It's very disappointing, by the way, politely. It's extremely disappointing. It speaks about the quality of our education system. It speaks about the manner in which our education system entices us to think in a critical manner. But it also speaks about our moral charisma and the quality of our wisdom to discern that is right and strongly pursue what is considered to be correct. It's not a matter of only coming here for a debate. A lot of things are at a test. So you are talking about the number of people that we have in the country and the opportunities that should be created in Parliament. Is Parliament the only thing that should be done by everyone? What's wrong with the district being represented by a single legislator? What is the role of a legislator? To pay your tuition or to debate the national policies? Do you need to be 1,000 to debate a policy? Can't a single person handle that? But the question of form vis-a-vis substance is one that we cannot cherish as a population. So, my take is simple and a polite one. That we must, first of all, think in a critical manner.
No, the youth want more MPs that represent them in Parliament.
Before, in a critical manner, we must ask ourselves, if there are many posts created for the youth, what is the space there? What are the available avenues for them to discuss and become benevolent to the rest of the population? If you send 1,000 youth and they have not even where to sit in that assembly, have you achieved a solution? Have you achieved any remedy? Have you only worsened the situation? Because things are as they are, and we must go by that notion, as the two of you seem to agree, that even when our country is really perishing, we must simply say, yes, go and perish. And once it has perished, then we must come back and say, now we want a difference. We kill our country first. We don't need these elective positions.
So what do we need?
So
What we need are a few positions.
where does that leave the taxpayer
on
anyway?
Listen, when Lee Kuan Yew was transforming Singapore, he transformed Singaporean economy through the notion of meritocracy. Let the best person do the job. Let the best public specialist, public policy specialist, go and debate public policy. But he made sure that the payment of a public policy analyst, if he has a degree, is the same as the salary of a teacher who is teaching public policy at a national university. So that at not a single moment, there is a teacher at a university who admires the life of a public policy analyst or discussant. That was meritocracy. So it kept the best teachers in Singapore in classes and enticed the best debaters and public policy specialists in national assemblies and parliaments. It kept the best technocrats in institutions that required that skill, dexterity, and talent. What is our organic problem? At the start, I did mention of an organic problem. We have an MP who, by design, by the way, it's not by mistake, is given a lot of money to make it highly competitive, but also to make it appear a superior position. And we have other systems that are, by the way, strongly needed for the transformation of our economy. Like teaching, like technical elements, like the way you're seeing these people in National Planning Authority, being paid pennies back home. So a man who is literally collecting tax at Uganda Revenue Authority envies being a parliamentarian. A Dorothy Seka who has been fired from KCCA is now looking at being the next member of parliament for Kampala. But what is she having on the table? She is only seeing the next big payment ticket. If I was in charge of this country, unfortunately I'm not anywhere close, this is what the change I would like to see.
Just pause there and to find out if Hellen and Ivan have ever since abandoned their position owing to your persuasive argument.
I want to appreciate his passion for seeing things, for looking at things on how they should be. That does not mean that I have appreciated the fact that we are living in an abnormal system, and therefore whoever is doing normal is likely to actually even get tired. So sometimes...
So must we get tired of doing good?
No, we cannot get tired of doing good, but trust me, sometimes you need to act mad to see what the other normal people are doing, whether you're all mad in the society.
Even when that mad eventually leads us to...
It cannot.
Make society cramped.
It cannot. Right now what we are doing is, if Electoral Commission is commissioning new constituencies very soon, they are going to open up new constituencies very soon. Us as young people, should we just keep quiet and clap for Electoral Commission for looking at us as the majority?
You can protest,
but actually,
you can protest against and demand that they do not create.
When did protestation ever work in this country?
No, at least make your voice heard.
When did our voices be heard?
No, okay, from the point
I want you to give me an example of where we have not spoken.
Okay, allow me. At least go on record for saying the right thing.
And then be on record, and then what?
No,
we want work done.
No. You see, there is something called time, and time will vindicate you eventually.
You just want us to exonerate ourselves and see.
People will see that at a point when this country was at crossroads between burdening the taxpayer more, Hellen said, even when I cannot do much about this particular situation, here is my position.
Our role shall
I disagree with this particular matter, and I don't think the EC should go ahead to create more constituencies that burden the taxpayer.
We have contributed to history enough. I am telling you, we are already in history. We have contributed to it enough. We must deal with how things are right now.
So
if electoral commission and our parliament and all the stakeholders accept that new constituencies should be made, they should be made all through. We should also sit, look at the UBOS report on population.
Youth, disabilities, workers, elders, it should
If the population has increased, and that's why they are making up new constituencies. What does the UBOS report on population say about the young people? Have they increased? Yes. By what percentage? And that is it all. Let us stop segregating things. We cannot be looking at wrong and right now. We must make things right. And what is right is this. If we are cutting parliament, we are cutting it, and all through we are cutting it. Even the young people, whether they have done whatever, it is okay. But for me, and that's why I told you about proportional representation, because it will solve the problem. We shall be represented by actually percentage in most cases, because you look at a number of people and this is what they deserve. Right now where we are not, I don't know what electoral commission really looks at when they are creating these new constituencies, but if at all they are looking at population and accessibility to voting, then all of us are having a problem, and we already have an affirmative act. So let it work all through. The debate of saying that young people are advocating for more shouldn't be talked about right now. We can talk about it when we get there, and all of us with them, we are seated on one table. But while us, we are on our own table and they are on their own table discussing things, we should join the table and discuss really.
So the point is, seek first the political kingdom.
And then we discuss.
Else shall fall in place.
Then we shall discuss.
Ivan. Yes. Owing to Julius's arguments, are you persuaded to abandon your position initially?
No, I really love the flowery language with which he...
Man, you're so passionate about right things.
But brings out the right things, but it's also very pertinent for us to keep in touch with reality, not to let us get detached from what is actually taking place. You see, and I think Museveni also used to think like him. In 1980, you thought you got people, give them ideas, and for some reason they will vote for you. Well, I think past that, he realized things are different. You see, humanity has been here for quite a long period of time. And Kidega, I would say that with humans, provided a limitless access to very credible information, human beings will always make stupid choices. So it is why propaganda comes at the center of statecraft. You get it? Museveni got to realize this, that yes, there's what's, normative, but then there's what's real. We deal with what is real now, and then we can look at the normative, what ought to be, when we get there. If in any way we actually get there. So, again, I will reiterate what very many people have said, that the leaders as is are a product of the society. Our people, our ordinary man, staging his board at a stage somewhere. His thinking is not very different from the thinking of an MP. So, with what he is talking about, the Lee Kuan Yew story in Singapore, this guy had to actually do social re-engineering for that country to leap from third world to first. And for us to effect or replicate the same change here, we actually must do the same. Now, I'll conclude by...
We must elect many members of parliament.
No, we
to
must socially
realize that.
engineer the masses to think different.
So then what must be done? To have more members of parliament? Because this is your initial position.
We
And
all
this is
want
the
that
position where
parliament
I define.
reduced.
Everyone wants
We
the
all
parliament
want
reduced.
that parliament reduced, but right now that it's not being reduced,
So now
what
that
should
it's
be
not
done?
going to be reduced, we should expand it to 1,000.
No, it should be all equal.
So,
We are advocating for all equal. If it is increased for the other side, it should increase this side.
Not
If
even
they are increasing, if they are cutting, they should cut all through. That's what we are saying generally. We are not saying that they should increase, no. We are saying if they are increasing, let them increase for us all.
So now, like, critically, you can't see that this is a problem and simply say, no, you don't have an option of going overboard. You have already the option that we are giving you to come back to order.
Nobody
You
has
don't
talked
have-
about the wrongness in that parliament than the younger people in this country. Trust me, nobody. The recent
But
march to
right now,
parliament.
there must be opportunities for eating
The
fast.
recent march to parliament was full of young people. The recent march to parliament was full of young people. When you go downtown and you look at the young people, how they struggle every day hustling, my friend, it is the young people that are struggling, contributing to the tax that is being paid to our members of parliament. Look around borders, go on streets, most of them, young people with the degrees just struggling. What we are saying is, what is good for the goose,
It's good for the Ganga.
if they are increasing parliament, saying that we are increasing the size, the population has grown. It has not only grown this side, it has grown all through. The young people have also, we have now a big percentage, so let us do it. If they are cutting parliament, they are welcome. Let them cut it.
So meaning we cannot stop them from increasing parliament.
I am
and the
telling you,
size.
right now where we are, it's very hard to
they're
stop
already
them.
mooting.
They're
So-
already mooting. They're
so-
already on the...
So meaning we simply have to jump on the bandwagon
If it's,
or doing the band.
if it's a bicycle, they are already riding.
So get within the system and beat them from within it. So, anyway.
So anyway, our time is fast spent. We have, I think, about 5 minutes to go. So I will invite parting shots, 2 minutes each. I'll begin with you, Ivan, as I move towards Julius. Just 2 minutes strictly. Look to the camera and give us your parting shots.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Moses. So, the practical being in me tells me that if we are to impose a new socio-political order in Uganda, ideally we need to have Ugandans get angry. That is the entire logic behind Dr. Bwesigye's civil disobedience tantrums, that for Ugandans to get angry enough for us to change government. But that is not plausible as is. So it is why people like us have gravitated towards outfits like PLU, because we believe the only way we can negotiate this man out of power is by getting someone that he has been fronting for quite a while. And we still believe that if, say, given power, which position he now abdicated, and you called us homeless, we still believe that we would negotiate power from this gentleman. That's the most practical way as is. You get it? So, again,
Negotiate power.
Negotiate power. Yes, negotiate power from him and have the levers of the state being pulled by somebody else. You see, for me, I believe that if Kidega was a president and say we have a change to Kidega's son, I don't believe that Kidega's son would think exactly 100% as his father. So, for us, we believe that if the state let us have power transition to somebody else, I think it would work. That's the most practical thing. Now, I'll conclude by saying that, you see, inducing regime change may be the best option, but it may not be as feasible for now as is. No, it's not. Yes, so these electoral reforms, again, my position is, this is just part of keeping Ugandans busy. I don't see any electoral reform coming our way, except for more municipalities being operationalized and cities, and more districts being created and constituencies. So, again, it will be smooth sailing for the head of state come the next election.
Fair enough. Helen, your parting shot in 2 minutes.
I have heard him saying that the president will not be like the son. The son will not be like the president. I have never heard of any unserious argument like this. Thinking this is a very, very unserious argument that someone who has been in power closer to the son will not believe the same.
No, these are parting shots. These are parting shots.
Really, there is trouble in the days coming. I want to really rally youth to keep awake to the times. A lot is happening, and in really a very, very geek way. You wake up and there is a tweet saying, I'm not contesting, and we go with that. We don't even question, we don't want to think about it, we just post and we are happy that he has, pulled out of the race. You wake up and there is talking on the street that this is going to happen, and we jump on that. We do not even want to think aloud on what is behind that. We don't want to think about the realities of what could cause this and what is that. But for me, I believe that we must keep our minds awake to anything that can happen and be ready to go with what will happen. Because trust me, the way the world is moving so fast, you do not adapt to it, it leaves you behind. There is now AI. If you do not now want to awaken your mind that this is happening, then you're left behind. I also want to think that the electoral reforms that should come, if really God is awake to the cries of the young people of this country, they should speed up the process of, transition. And I have personally not seen any new president. I have never even seen anybody trying. I have only seen those that, have come up and showed interest. So if God is alive to our prayers, and how we've been praying and crying out loud, that's what I was talking about, then the reforms should come and favor us, that we can have a peaceful but also transiting election come 2026. That we shall have a president who can actually lose an election and accept and go home. And also that we shall have more young people join in the leadership spaces and, take power, and we see how this country can be. And to any opportunity that is out there, to you, the young people, please take it on. Take it on. Sitting and watching things and how they are done is not good enough, but also what is good enough is participating and making things done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Julius, your parting shot in 2 minutes.
When I was still a young boy, I read a book. And this book was about the story of Thomas More. Thomas More was a British lawyer, philosopher, and a Renaissance humanist. He was the Chancellor of the United Kingdom, the monarchy there. And one of the kings, King Henry IV, had contracted an illegal marriage. And this chancellor was required, he was a lawyer, was required to come and ceremonize that wedding. He refused and took his position to the point of his decapitation. He was killed in cold blood for taking that position, and that inspired me to go into law school and ultimately become a lawyer. He's the only man whose story has touched me from childhood. Owing to his legacy and owing to the understanding that I have had in my legal training and my entire life, I cannot come here to discuss whether a sitting army commander has the power to determine whether he's going to run for presidency or not, and as an educated citizen, I should owe my political allegiance to such illegality. Rampant violation of our constitution, but also a speech to our understanding of the manner in which governments should function. Two, there are reforms that we need in this country. One of them is to reduce the cost of running business. To reduce the cost of running business, we don't need space science. We only need to open career to talent. to make sure that if you are a philosopher in Parliament, you take home that equates to what a philosopher takes in a church or in a school. We shall reduce competition. We shall not have many youth struggling to be members of Parliament. We shall have youth struggling to be farmers, because farming shall equally pay just as it is for the Parliament. These are the reforms that we need in this country. To those of you that are watching us, we all have a role. This country lives with us and dies with us. If you sit there and think that it is Daniel Kidega to do it for you, you are misguided. When a new law is put in place to further exploit you to the benefit of the MPs that my colleagues are talking about, it is to your detriment. And you must come out with courage and say no. They seem to assert that, yes, we must agree with status quo. Me, I challenge status quo, right from my father if he was still around. I would be in position to honorably depart from him, because I have the sense of understanding and the wisdom to discern. And this is what I call unto you, the listeners, to understand that this is our country, and you must not surrender to slavery. You must not give up to servitude. You must not give up and surrender and say that because they have been well positioned, they are the best to do it forever. We are all equal before the law and before God.
Thank you. Thank you, Julius. Thank you, Hellen, and thank you, Ivan, for your time. Of course, to the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Wednesday afternoon. Of course, to the people who ensure that this show airs right on time, many thanks to you as well. Until next week, same time, same place, have a lovely afternoon. And happy Independence Month of October. Bye-bye.